Let me ask you this, would you consider yourself a casual or hardcore gamer? What if I told you that no matter what your answer is to that question, just by clicking on this video, you have now crossed the line into hardcore gaming? You have just engaged in a games community more than the majority of players would. Honestly, I've already made the jump. At the start of Shadowlands, I got invited to raid with my friends, and I had to start looking at guides and mechanic videos for the raid encounters. I had to spend a lot of time practicing my class and understanding the basics of DPS pumping. This video is no longer about me. I'm not even close to being a casual player anymore. This video is more of a discussion on how if I didn't make that jump, I would have little to no content to keep me playing. This is a video about a topic that I hope someday Blizzard will do something about. MMO players today aren't the same as they were in 2004. Most people play more than one game. Most people play more than one MMO, which means there is a large portion of their potential player base that they are completely alienating with the current design of their game. To put it simply, there is a large barrier to entry to enjoying the best content in the game, and in this video I'd like to point out what I feel are the biggest reasons that casual players are no longer enjoying World of Warcraft. Just to set a basis for our discussion, WoW has always been a grindy, time-intensive MMO. In that regard, there's nothing that I could tell you that you don't already know. Patch 9.2, which includes Zereth Mortis and the final raid of Shadowlands, has felt no different. There are things to do besides raiding or getting new powerful gear, but there isn't much thought put into them. The main focus is still to build your power and get cool looking gear, just like it's always been, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Unfortunately, Blizzard is still keeping players from being able to do this by throwing in long, repetitive, time-intensive grinds. But don't get me wrong, I don't think Blizzard hates casual players solely because they have grinding mechanics. There are a couple of larger problems that are plaguing Blizzard's game design that are keeping non-dedicated players away from World of Warcraft. First, let's define what a casual player is, because I think the definition has changed quite a bit over the years. If you do a straight Google search on it, you get a lot of results saying that a casual gamer is someone who plays a game non-competitively, or someone who plays a game but isn't necessarily permanent to it. Casual gamers don't usually immerse themselves any further into the game or its community than just face value. They don't look up guides, they don't join forum discussions, they don't watch videos on why a certain character acts the way they do, but for the sake of discussion, I think this is kind of a hard definition to quantify. For now, to quantify casual gaming, I'm going to take the number of hours that an average gamer plays a week. In 2021, that was at an all-time high of about 16 hours, mostly due to the pandemic. We'll say anything less is casual and anything more is a hardcore gamer. And that's being pretty generous considering that people are probably playing more than one game at a time. So 16 hours a week or about 2 hours and 15 minutes a day is what we have to work with. If you've played World of Warcraft before, which I'm sure a lot of you who are watching this video have, you probably know where I'm heading with this. How far into the game do you think a casual player can get in 2 hours? Look, I'll even give Blizzard the benefit of the doubt and leave out leveling a character, because at this point it's so fast-paced and has nothing to do with the relevant content. So let's start at Shadowlands. How far into Shadowlands could someone get in 2 hours? Well, on their first character, they have to go to Stormwind and start the intro content. They have to go to Icecrown and listen to Bolvar say something about Sylvanas being rude. They go to the Maw and save Jaina, Thrall, Anduin, and then Bane. They walk about a mile to sneak through the jailer's forces, only to get caught by the jailer again. Their character finds a way out, gets teleported to Oribos to talk to some aliens, and listen to Bolvar bitch about Sylvanas again. I replayed the intro just to see how long it would take for me to get from the very beginning of the Shadowlands content to your first new zone, Bastion. It took me about 1 hour and 10 minutes to get through it all. And keep in mind, I have like 10 alts that are leveled into Shadowlands. I've done this intro a lot because before 9.1, I think, you couldn't skip it on alts. If someone is doing this for the first time, how long would it take them? Someone who hasn't played World of Warcraft for 14 years like I have, I would argue that it would take their full 2-hour time limit for that day. I'm not trying to argue that the content should be shorter or not. That is pure opinion, because completing the intro for the first time is actually fairly important. It sets up the entire Shadowlands storyline, which is confusing as hell even for veterans. If you enjoy the intro, that's perfectly fine. What I'm trying to bring to light here is that casual players have a lot of time investment waiting for them in order to play World of Warcraft. This is just the intro. There's a whole mess of content waiting for them, but that alone is not necessarily a bad thing. You could argue either way. Some may say, hey, new players have hours and hours of fresh new content. Others would say that new players are given a mountain of mediocre content that they are required to climb to reach the endgame, which is considered to be the best the game has to offer. In recent history, World of Warcraft has been developed for two major groups of players. You can see this purely based on the focus of updates that go into the game every patch. The first group is hardcore or dedicated players. More specifically, players who do one of three things: raid, PvP, or usually a single side system, which I guess in this case is Torghast. When Shadowlands came out, it was pretty apparent that Blizzard had fallen into the same trap again. These 3 pillars are usually tailored for high-end, difficult, competitive play. The second customer group then is the group that I like to refer to as the I don't know and I don't care group. This is the weird one, on the other side of the spectrum as hardcore dedicated players. Blizzard seems to think that there are a lot of players like this that exist, but I tend to disagree. The I don't know and I don't care group is made up of players that are fine with playing for an hour, quick queuing into a legacy content dungeon that requires no attention to complete, engaging in a couple of pet battles, and maybe completing a quest or two depending on if they can find the start to the Shadowlands intro. They don't mind hopping onto the game for 30 minutes and then not playing again for a couple weeks. This group is treated as if they never want to even attempt to get to higher level content. But with the game being subscription based, I don't think Blizzard has as many players that do this as they think. Why pay monthly for content that you would never want to try? Listen, I respect anyone who plays the game. If you want to play World of Warcraft for 30 minutes after your kids have gone to bed and you're waiting for your spouse to get out of the shower, then by all means do it. You shouldn't have to feel pressured to enjoy the game a certain way. That does not mean that Blizzard should only focus on developing game features that cater to the time investment of the bottom or the top 10% of players.
Hey, just was wondering, is this an out-of-season April Fool's joke?
And that's where the design of current World of Warcraft is. Either you are part of the top 20% of players that can complete enough content, get your gear, complete the storylines, and complete a raid on normal, or you are part of the bottom 10% that are fine with never attempting to do that. Where does that leave the other 70% of players? Here we have 70% of players playing on average 16 hours a week that will have to decide what to do with their game time. What does Blizzard have for them? A couple months ago, I made a video highlighting the complexity of MMOs, and I used WoW's endgame as an example. I tried to put together a simplified flowchart of what a fresh Shadowlands player had to do in order to get into a raid. So this is a flowchart of how difficult it was to get leveled, geared, and ready to attempt to raid in Castle Nathria on normal. Casual players are not going to engage with something like this. Think about someone who isn't already in the habit of looking up guides. Think of someone who doesn't know about Icy Veins or Wowhead. How would they even begin to understand this? And I was the one who put it in a flowchart. This is obviously not shown to you in game. In the game, you are basically thrown to the wind and have to figure it all out on your own. Sure, you get told what conduits are, but how would you know which one is best for your class? Sure, you get told what legendaries are, but how would you know where to pick up the memory? And even before all of this, how would they know what covenant to pick? They wouldn't. A casual player with no guide to tell them what to do and when will have to learn through trial and error, and this is where Blizzard punishes them. Let's do a little visualization exercise. At the start of Shadowlands, covenants, conduits, and legendaries were noticeably unbalanced. Let's say you spent the time to build your covenant renown, a weekly time-gated reputation system that unlocks necessary player power. That's already a hefty time sink, but let's say you did. You join a random dungeon group and are hit with the heavy realization that you are doing far less damage than your fellow DPSers. They tell you that you need to do more damage or you'll be kicked from the group. For the sake of discussion, we'll say that these groupmates of yours are nice enough to tell you why you aren't doing enough damage. They say you aren't completing your rotation correctly. They notice you aren't geared efficiently, and they notice your covenant is the far less optimal option for your class. Now you are playing with the realization that not only are you choosing to play with the less optimal covenant, but others that you are playing with are noticing it in your gameplay. How much pressure would you feel to go back to your covenant, tell the badass undead warrior necrolords to f*** off, and go join the fairies just because they give your class the best damage boost? And of course you start from 0 renown, so there starts the same covenant grind all over again. If you had only 16 hours a week to play video games, would you want to spend it like this? A casual player is not going to understand on his own why everyone is doing more damage than him. They most likely won't even have a damage meter add-on to tell them how much damage they are doing. Now on top of learning the game's combat and stat mechanics and potentially downloading add-ons and following a class guide, Blizzard wants them to understand conduits, soulbinds, and legendaries too. And if you happen to choose the wrong one, you'll start to notice it as soon as you get into another dungeon group and you are falling behind yet again. But I want to say it again, it's not only the complexity of the systems that drive casual players away. Some people will be okay to try and learn it on their own time. But if they aren't driven away by the complexity, then they may be driven away by the fact that they are punished for making the wrong decision. Each wrong decision they make will force them to spend more time fixing their error, time they may not have or want to spend on the game. Leveling takes time, gearing takes time, grinding anima and renown takes time. Everything in the game takes a very long time. Time is a valuable resource, and that time needs to be respected, or players will go to another game that they feel respects their time. That's not just for casual players, that's for everyone, but casual players have a much lower tolerance for what they feel is time wasting. 16 hours a week is not just to complete the content, but also to keep up. up with the player base who was willing to spend much more time getting raid or PvP ready. And time, grindy complex systems, and social pressures aren't the only thing that are keeping casual players away. There's also a major information and skill gap between the hardcore players and the casual players, something brought about by the necessity of add-ons and online class guides in order to play the game at a certain skill level. You can argue that add-ons aren't necessarily the fault of Blizzard, though I would have to somewhat disagree. Personally, I don't think add-ons are the problem. Add-ons are created to fulfill a need that the game does not. A big reason that add-ons became a necessity is because the game is designed in a way that requires an add-on for players to succeed. Raiding and Mythic Plus dungeons have been some of the most fulfilling experiences that I've personally had in World of Warcraft. They challenge me to learn my class, learn how to use consumables, how to coordinate with my group, and give an awesome sense of achievement when you complete them. But before I was able to enjoy either of these, I went through a huge shift in how I play World of Warcraft. The game was no longer about exploring and having this sense of wonder and amazement at the locations or encounters of the game. I didn't see WoW as an RPG anymore. Now it was all numbers. In order to get to the level of play that was required to succeed in raiding, I had to do a list of things. Castle Nathria, the first raid in Shadowlands, came out 3 weeks after the expansion launched. In order to raid with my guild, I first had to get to level cap in about 5 days. This was necessary so that I could do endgame dungeons and start grinding renown. I had to look up a class guide so that I could pick out the best talents, the best covenant, and find the best gear. I had to look up a legendary guide to help me identify the best legendary for fire mages and which dungeon or wing of Torghast I had to grind in order to obtain it. I had to look up a guide to tell me what my weekly checklist should be in order to make gold, stockpile anima, get soul ash, and farm consumables for myself and my guild. I had to look up guides to the Castle Nathria boss mechanics and make sure I was aware of what my role would be to counter them. I had to look up guides on my ability rotation as a fire mage and how to maximize DPS as a caster while constantly on the move in the raid. I had to download a list of add-ons that gave me a number of advantages that are necessary to perform at a raiding level. Deadly boss mods that gives me alerts when specific mechanics are happening in a boss fight. Weak Auras, which is a tool that allows you to download class-specific HUDs that show you which spells you need to cast and when. Raider.io, which allows you to keep track of your raiding and Mythic Plus dungeon progress. Players use this to determine your worth in game. Bartender 4, which isn't completely necessary, but it allows you to have complete control over all of your action bars, including the location and size, so that I can have a cleaner screen during the boss fight. Plater, which is a nameplate manager that I could use to easily distinguish adds from bosses, and customize alerts for health percentages on each enemy. And Details, a DPS meter that would allow me to make sure I was pumping DPS. If not, I needed to practice my class more and pump more damage. And there are more add-ons that are needed if you are a healer or a tank. All of this just to join my guild in our attempt to complete the entry-level difficulty for Castle Nathria. Just this preparation was a commitment. And you know what? Even after doing all of this, I was still third from the bottom on the DPS meter. My guildies were much more dedicated and skilled than I was. Now if you think, hey, I don't need all of this stuff, I'll just go into a raid blind and see how it goes, I would say, you poor, naive little boy. If it were that easy, everyone would do it, but it's not. Unfortunately, because the raiding scene has become so competitive due to the increasing amount of preparation and difficulty of boss mechanics, if you don't have all of these things that I just listed, you are basically gated from the content. Guilds will not take you because they don't want to waste their time every week on someone who isn't putting in the same amount of effort as they are. Pickup groups will take you, but as soon as you start messing up mechanics, they will kick you. You are basically relegated to LFR only, which is sometimes more difficult than just completing the content on higher difficulties. LFR is filled with new or less dedicated players who are just trying to experience the content. Nothing wrong with that, but just keep in mind that if the mechanics require 25 people to work together to take down a boss and a handful of people don't perform, the entire raid wipes. That is worse in LFR because there is little to no communication from anyone, but I'm getting off topic. The point I'm trying to make here is that casual players have to quite literally become dedicated players simply to attempt any of the raiding content. It creates a gatekeeping community that relies on add-ons to make their weekly raid clear attempts more effective and efficient. If you don't buy into this culture of DPS meters and boss alerts, then you aren't allowed to enjoy it. Think about it, what group of 25 people would want to spend every week waiting for you to get better while they are paying $15 a month to play the game a certain way? More often than not, you'll be kicked just to respect the fact that other people in the guild want their time respected, and I don't blame them. Unfortunately, it's not your fault. It's Blizzard's. They've created a game where difficulty depends on raid mechanics that force you to rely on other people to complete the content. They created a time-consuming maze of player power systems that force players to adopt the most efficient way to play rather than the most fun way to play. They've created a community that focuses on numbers rather than playing the game, because in order to play the game, they are required to focus on numbers. Add-ons like DPS meters, boss alerts, weak auras, Raider.io scores are all a byproduct of time-intensive, high-difficulty content in an expensive game that incentivizes players to play at peak performance or fail to progress. Meta guides for classes, farming, boss mechanics, and leveling or gearing are a byproduct of creating a game that keeps all its good content behind walls of tedious, grindy, repetitive tasks. And here, Blizzard expects a casual player with 16 hours a week at most, minimal engagement in the WoW community, no add-ons. They expect that poor casual player to figure this all out? Well, Blizzard either believes that, or they just don't care. It's kind of funny because I haven't really been a casual player for about 5 years now, but I still have this hope that I can go back in time and enjoy the game as much as I used to. I would love to re-experience that naive sense of wonder and excitement that I used to get while exploring the world and casually running dungeons with my friends, but I honestly don't think that's possible. It would be hard for me and the majority of WoW's current player base to take off the meta blinders that are keeping us pushing our skill levels higher and higher. What would we do? Intentionally suck at the game? So when I say that I would like for Blizzard to do something for the casual player base, I don't really ask because it would directly benefit me. I think it benefits the game's health as a whole, and it would revitalize the world that all of us love so much. Wouldn't it be great if we were able to boost the population of some of these dead servers again? Wouldn't it be great if we could have players stay for more than 3 months after the expansion drops? I think Blizzard needs to focus on bringing back casual content, add more pillars to the endgame than just raiding, Mythic Plus, and PvP. Reduce or remove some of the repetitive, grindy, time-gated mechanics that force players to play efficiently rather than having any amount of fun. Try to break down some of these barriers to entry that new and casual players have to face anytime that they try to enjoy the best parts of the game. If they can't change some of these things to make add-ons less necessary, maybe they could incorporate some of the add-on functionality into the game, like they've done with eye levels and Mythic Plus scores. That would give everyone an equal playing field when it comes to information and functionality. But I don't want to act like I know everything. What I do know is that I still love this game, and I really hope that the WoW team tries to diversify content rather than developing a game on a playbook made 15 years ago. But most importantly, I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you liked it, and subscribe for more content. I hope you enjoy your adventures in Zereth Mortis, and I can't wait to see what we talk about next.